Before we dive into today's episode, I have something truly special to share. Next September, I'll be leading an intimate women's retreat through the south of France and northern Italy, and you're invited. Picture this: mornings exploring the colorful markets of the French Riviera, afternoons sipping wine, and a hotel view with golden Mediterranean sunsets. Whether you love photography, food, or just want to reconnect with your playful creative self, this trip is designed for you. Spots are limited, so if all this sounds like your kind of adventure, please visit tourwithabsolutely.com and look for the tour France and Italy with Crystal. You can also send me a message or check out the show notes. Claudine Hemingway is a descendant of famed writer Ernest Hemingway. We bumped into each other at a party and decided to team up and dive deep into French history, but with a twist, by bringing a spotlight to those lesser-known creatives in France. This is History with a Hemingway. Welcome back, guys. I'm back with Claudine, and we are still talking about fashion in the Louvre. We have the Couture in the Louvre right now, and this is the third part, and I'll let Claudine take it from here.
Yeah, so I thought last week when we talked about it, I was like, oh, but then there was a whole nother room that we need to talk about, and it's filled with so many great things. But before we started, we will talk a little about the Louvre because it's been in the news this week. And this is going to be coming out a week after this all happened. But I thought maybe I would try to dispel some panic because actually right before we recorded this, I just got another message from somebody asking me. So on Monday, if you live, because for some reason this made the news on every news outlet in the United States, the Louvre had a strike on Monday. It is really a bummer and really frustrating when this happens, but this happens at the Louvre every other month. This happens every June at the start of summer. The staff goes on strike because it gets incredibly hot in there in certain places. And they've cut over 200 jobs in the last few years. And so it's just a lot of work. And so they go on strike. They'll call it a meeting in the morning and you'll go there thinking it's going to open. And they say, oh no, we're opening a little late. They're in a meeting, quote unquote, which technically means strike. And so Monday, they did do just that. The Louvre did not open that day until 2:00. But everything, including the major news outlets like CNN and Forbes and MSN and everything online, said that it never opened. And actually, it basically implies that it is going to be closed for quite some time, which is not true. It opened that day. And I was just there this morning and everything opened at 9 a.m., just like normal. So if you were coming to Paris, in France, as you know, and we know, living here, there's strikes and little things like this all the time. But don't worry. The Louvre is open and they're going to figure things out. It's the busiest time of the year. And they sell out days and days in advance. So they will figure this out. But the Louvre is not closed. So you could go in there and see this exhibit.
Yeah, guys, listen to Claudine. The news can be a little exaggerated sometimes.
Especially my number one rule is I will have clients send me messages in a panic because of we saw this protest or we saw this thing online. Is it okay to come to Paris? Are we going to be worried? My number one rule is do not get your news about Paris from a U.S. website or Facebook or any of those things. Look at something coming out of that country. It's true for anything. When it comes to the Louvre, when we've talked about the Mona Lisa, when you mention the Louvre and people, if you notice in these articles, sometimes they use Mona Lisa actually in the title of the article because it's a massive clickbait. They know that if they use the Mona Lisa, everybody will click on it and see it. So they get that attention. But these articles will say, nothing, the Louvre closed today and it hasn't even, it closed during COVID, but even wars and this and that didn't close the Louvre, which isn't true either. But the Louvre did open that day. That is the most frustrating part of this whole scenario. But if you are coming, have your ticket. If you have your ticket in advance, usually you will get an email if they're going to have a meeting in the morning and they'll say, oh, we're probably going to open a little late. Usually they'll say, it could be 10 or 10:30 and I've gone there at 9 and at 9:15, the doors are open, you go in. So you just never know just when you come to Paris pack your patience. But what is a huge bummer is that maybe that was the only day somebody could go, that they were in Paris and now they didn't get to go to the Louvre, which is the other side of it. And I really wish they wouldn't do this, but it does get the attention and they get what they want.
Yeah, I mean, that's why they do it, right? It works.
Yeah, it works. So, but everything was open today. It was Monday. We're recording this on Wednesday, and everything opened at 9 a.m. this morning, and everything was just fine. So don't panic. And then just if you have a ticket, they'll honor it. If you say your ticket's at 9 a.m. and they don't open until 2, they'll still let you in, which is the other side of the scenario, because all those people from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. or could be in the music trying to get into the museum at the same time, which makes it you don't want to go. But they will let you in, and then depending on the scenario, they might even let you use it for a different day, but you kind of have to take that as it comes. But that is my little thing about the Louvre, because I've been getting an incredible amount of messages from people in a panic, but don't panic. But we are going to talk about the last part of the Moyen Age, the Middle Age and Byzantine period of that's dedicated to the fashion exhibit. So we haven't even gotten into the next one, the Renaissance. So there's one more room. And this room, this is what really kind of is evocative of the entire Middle Age period. This one has some pieces in it that are a little bit very, they'll always evoke a few comments when people go in there. There's a 3D printed dress, and there's a large bronze head that I'm not really even sure how they even wore on the runway so that you could see where you were going. But this room is also where they have a video display that kind of talks a little bit about how the exhibit was created. But it is a really, the stuff in here is really fascinating. You will remember there is on the right hand side that, do you remember the big it was a long sleeve bright blue shirt, almost like a t-shirt, and it was just that the mannequin doesn't have any pants on.
Yeah,
But it is and then it has wings coming out of its back.
definitely remember that.
Yeah, it is kind of like when you see it, you're like that, other than the wings, you could see that at the nearest mall. But it is, and I'll put a picture of what this actually looked like on the runway, because you could see it from behind, which you don't see in the exhibit. But it's the Loewe shirt. It came from the autumn winter 2023-24 collection. It was done by Jonathan Anderson, who is now, just in the last couple weeks, has been named as the new head of Dior. He is going to oversee the men's and the women's, which has not happened since Christian Dior himself. They've had separate designers for the men's and women. He's now going to be the head over all of the collections. But he is Irish in descent. He had this look, came down the runway. The model it was a male model, and he didn't have any pants on, and he was wearing these boots that are very furry, but he had very furry legs too.
He didn't need any pants.
He didn't need any bands. But it is when you look at it, you're kind of like, oh, but when I did research on it and looked at the pictures from the runway from behind, it's really really actually a little bit more interesting. Jonathan Anderson really loves the Middle Ages and mythology, and so it's kind of reflected in this shirt. The back of the shirt buttons all the way up, so there's buttons which you don't really notice it on the front. And in there, and then underneath there, he had kind of like these leather straps that went around his chest. And so the wings actually are coming out of almost his back, not the shirt. So they weren't attached to the shirt. They are coming out of what looks like his back. And it's really actually like, oh, wow, there's a lot more to it than it looking like a bright blue shirt from the mall. It's really, I thought it was actually really interesting. And so it's, what's really cool is that right next to it on a column which is always right there, is a reliquary. And we know how much you love the reliquaries with the little pieces of bones in it, but there's no little pieces of bones in the ones here. But it was created by the goldsmith of the Middle Ages to hold the precious pieces of the saints from the church. The first reliquaries were the second and third centuries were more humble, and they were kind of usually placed in just boxes. pieces and put into the furniture. The craftsmanship of the Byzantine period, and along with getting more of the important holy relics, led to this huge explosion in the craft. They were first designed as sarcophagus or like a casket, which you can see some of the ones that look kind of like a sarcophagus in the Louvre, and also, of course, many of the churches in Paris. But they became more intricate and in the shapes of busts and even feet or angels or moonstraws, which is like they look kind of like a big sun. The details on some of these are just actually just amazing, with even like teeny tiny statues of saints. And some of the ones in this room, this is why I think this is one of those interesting rooms, is how they reflect in with the pieces. So the marble column next to the shirt, it has, from the side, it was a Flemish copper figure, and it was holding, instead of holding a reliquary, it would actually, in its little hands are together. It's a little angel, and it was holding a tiny candle. And so if you look at it from the side, so they have it placed on the side, so you see how the wings really just come all the way out of the back. So it's not like the wings are closely attached to the back. It's just this little small piece. So it really kind of gives you the same idea as the shirt. The wing victor, there's another winged reliquary nearby that once belonged to Anne of Brittany. It had as one of the treasures of the Saint Esprit, and it dated to 1491, and it held a piece of Saint Sebastian. Saint Sebastian's another figure you'll see in the Grand Gallery a lot. But it's gilded silver and wood. And so the face is wood, and it's painted with polychrome, and has this sweet little face with very rosy cheeks. But I love how all the things, I think this room, if anything, even though the four pieces of fashion are a little different, I think they match the theme more than any other room.
Definitely when it comes to the rooms, because some things just like stick out.
Yeah, and after I got through the first rooms, when I've been doing the research on each one of these things, and then what it goes with. Sometimes the things that they paired with it to go with it, that's in the book of the exhibit, they're not even in the same room. So I was in there, and then I was like, oh wait, now I got to go to this place. But that's why, make sure to check out my Instagram, because I'm putting each one individually on my Instagram with the whole story, and also on my website. And then we'll tell you all the stories here. But it is like when you look at it and you see it, you're like, oh my God, yes. So the next one is the dress that is next to it. This is another one when at first you're like, I think I could find that at the mall. But it's Hermes. So you're definitely not finding it at the regular old mall at Forever 21. But it is, they're more famous for their handbags. I don't think a lot of people know that they do fashion at all. This is a really playful piece that was designed by the fashion designer Nadege Faye, and it was done in the spring of 2021, ready-to-wear collection. So while the majority of the exhibit is all about couture, there is some pieces in here that are from the pret-a-porter or ready-to-wear. So it is while this would still be a fortune to pay for it, it still is it's going to be a lot less expensive than a couture item, and then also something that you actually be able to find. The couture items, they're custom making it for you. But this is kind of that attention to detail that Hermes is known for. It is it's a form-fitting silk knit dress underneath it, and then on top of it, it's horn and lambskin. That's all it looks like, almost like a little grid. And when the show opened, it was originally a cream dress, and the piece over it was very much looked like kind of bone color, horn color. And now it's like chocolate brown. So they changed it. There's about 4 or 5 pieces in the museum that they've changed out since it opened, probably just because of the fragility of some of the fabric. But it is the same exact idea. They just changed the color of it.
Yeah.
But it is really, I mean, it's not something, a lot of these things you wouldn't think about wearing, but the design, this is one of those pieces that the piece of art with it is many rooms away. It is very reminiscent of a tapestry, which I love about the exhibit is they've really put a focus on tapestries. So the Adoration of the Magi, it's in room 525, so it's about 9 rooms away. But it was created in 1570 in Belgium by Franz Goebbels. It looked very closely at the clothing, and again, look at the pictures on my Instagram or my website. The two of the figures of the Magi, if you look at them, they look like they have a piece of their clothing that has that same kind of grid idea of this dress.
Whoa, wow.
It's really, I mean, if you go even right now while we're talking, if you go look on my Instagram, it's the one I posted yesterday. And I put on there kind of a close-up view of the tapestry. It's super cool. The Magi theme is started being used a lot during the Middle Ages. What one thing I learned with Notre Dame is each figure represents a different age, also a different part of the world. So the first one, the oldest figure, he is the oldest one with a beard, is always the one that's presenting the gold to the Virgin, and he is represents like the Orient. Then there is Gaspar, who's the middle-aged man. He's holding the frankincense and he's European. And then the youngest figure is Balthazar. He represents the African continent, sometimes seen with dark skin. And then he's holding the myrrh. And this is the case. I have found this now that I learned this every time I find the Adoration of the Magi. This has been right every single time, but one very contemporary painting I saw. And I just think that's super cool.
Yeah, no, I just love all of these. And like to know the information makes them mean so much more and like to be so much more beautiful.
Yeah, I mean, the thing about the tapestries, I've had so many people that are like, "Oh, I don't know if I like those. They're kind of boring." And then now it's like now I'm on a crusade to make people understand and love them because I mean, sometimes they're very faded or it's really hard to pick out what it is, but what you'll see, especially when we talk about the Renaissance next week, there's so much fashion that has been derived because of these tapestries, because of the images in it. And it's really very fascinating. I think it's really cool. The next room we'll talk about next week for the Renaissance is 12 huge tapestries. We won't get into every single one of them for the,
Yeah,
or
exactly.
it'll be really long, but I can't wait to share that one. So the next piece, I guess you could call it a dress. And when you see this one, it's not really even clothing, it's a sculpture. It's by Iris van Herpen. She was created this and it's called the Cathedral Dress. It was first seen in the 2012 Couture micro collection, which she only did like a dozen pieces for. She's a Dutch artist that she spent her formative years reading and studying art and architecture, never watching TV. And then she grew up, in Northern Europe. So she was surrounded by all these churches. She graduated in 2006 from the Artes Art Institute. And then she worked directly for Alexander McQueen, and before he passed away. But she created her own house in 2011. But she's been fascinated by nature photography and microscopic details. So, those almost like, it'd be like a documentary film where they'll have the photo of like the microorganisms or a very, very close up of the bird's feathers. She loves that. And so she brings that to life in her fashion. And in 2011, she was the very first to use 3D imaging as a fashion designer, creating a dress that looked like the torso of your skeleton. It was this white piece. You could find a picture of it online, but it was almost like, there was no body there. It was just a walking upper skeleton. She works with a company called Materialise. It's a 3D printing company. The cathedral dress was created, then it was placed in a copper electroplating bath to give it the color of a little bit of the patinaed copper color found in the Gothic cathedrals of Europe. But if you look at this, when I first saw it, I was like, oh, it looks like driftwood, like the color of driftwood. that's been dried. But it is, if you look very closely at it and the pieces they paired with it give it even more strength because it's like every curve and bend of a skeleton body, but also of like the cathedral spire. So like this, if you could zoom in on the spire of Notre Dame and look at it, that is what she created in a dress.
I mean, you described it so well. I see it in my head.
It's just, it's so, I mean, it's also, it's one, definitely one of those things that you'd wear, look at it, be like, how do you wear that? I mean, there's literally like, you could see through it and it would basically cover to your pelvis. And that's about it. But she does these, she's almost, it's almost like she's a sculptor more than she's a fashion designer. And definitely there was an exhibit at the Musée des Arts Décoratifs a year or two ago or so, that was all about her stuff. It's really, she does these small collections, like it's only, a dozen pieces when some collections, some designers are doing, 80, 90 pieces. She's doing much smaller ones, and then working with some really amazing artisans to create it. But this one is paired with other reliquaries, and there's so many reliquaries in the Louvre, none of which have any of the actual pieces in it anymore of the saints. And it's really easy to kind of look past these. I see people in these rooms. I was just in here a couple weeks ago, just taking pictures and making notes and doing research. And nobody looks at the cases, nobody looks at these things. They just kind of look at the clothes and then they keep going. But definitely look at it, and especially because once this dress is supposed to be inspired by the cathedral, and then you look at these pieces. So there's a Moonstrance reliquary in here, and that is always the Moonstrance is anytime it's a reliquary with glass. So it would be probably rock crystal in the past, but it has the glass so you could see the relic of the saint. So though, like in Saint-Sulpice, there's a reliquary on the wall with a piece of Saint Geneviève in it. And so there's glass in the front of it. I've still never been able to figure out what's in the glass. It's just really, I don't know if it's just like a shaving of her bone, but whatever. But the and Moonstrand says, so you have the glass there. This was most likely created in Germany at the start of the 15th century. They don't know for sure, but it's flamboyant Gothic. So flamboyant Gothic, while you have Notre Dame is Gothic, the Notre Dame in Reims, where all the kings were coronated in Champagne, that's flamboyant Gothic. And when you hear flamboyant, think of flame. So it's like even bigger, bigger, huge, spikes coming off the spire and everything like that, which is closer to the imagination of this dress. It's detailed in gilded copper with these figurines, these tiny little figurines in copper. And so there's a spire that's holding the Virgin and Child on the lid. It's topped with a crucifix with the smallest engraving. Two bells hang below it that are also next to that are gargoyles. Like these are so tiny. I'll put pictures up. And they're guarding these one little precious relic that would be put inside. There's also the figures of each of the four evangelists. So John, Luke, Matthew, and Mark. And then this at the bottom, there's 6 like lobes of like a flower. And each one is engraved with a various scene, including Christ carrying a cross, Christ between 2 columns, a virgin and child standing on a crescent moon, and the virgin and the angel of the Annunciation. So like the details on these things, like definitely just even do me a favor and look at one case of them and just really look at them because they are just so beautiful. And then when you think that these things were like from the 1400s, 1500s, and they're doing all this by hand, it's crazy. There's another one right next to it that they kind of have paired with the dress. And this one's really cool. And the first time I've ever seen this in a reliquary, it's a Flemish one dating to the 14th century, so mid 1300s. And it has the center, it's double-sided, has a translucent enamel that evokes the divine light of a Gothic cathedral. And we just a few weeks ago talked about the rose windows at Notre Dame. One side is green and has John the Baptist in the center medallion, and the other side is blue. And if you look at it, it's got all those bones that are around the rose window in there. And it's just absolutely amazing. On the top is a small figure of St. James the Great, which is also normally here called Saint Jacques. So he's the one that's tied to this the Saint Jacques de Compostela, which is the pilgrimage that goes down to Spain. He is usually depicted holding a walking stick and carrying a bag and this big floppy hat, sometimes with a scallop shell on it. But he doesn't. He has the hat and the bag, but he's not. It's too small to be able to see if there's a scallop on there. But it is so cool when you look at it. The last piece in this room is one that I'm sure you remember, and it's a great big bronze head.
Oh yeah, yeah, definitely. That thing you can't forget.
No, you can't. I mean, that's why I say the four things in this room are really things that you will not forget. And, it's like, it's even in at first, I was like, these are kind of lackluster, but they're actually probably the most interesting and the most, like I said at the beginning, the most tied to the period of time that they are putting it to. None of the pieces so far have matched that period like these. So that one is, of course, Schiaparelli. If you see something and it is kind of kooky and over the top, it's going to be Schiaparelli. Daniel Roseberry is the designer. He's an American designer born in Texas. This is from the Spring Summer 2023 collection. This collection, this one, when you see that, you're like, wow, that's memorable, but this was like the least memorable of that fashion show. And you might remember this. So this was only 2 years ago. But do you remember a fashion show and seeing pictures of Kylie Jenner with a giant head of a tiger coming out of her chest?
Yes.
And then also the rapper Doja Cat completely covered in red Swarovski crystals from head to toe, stuck to her face.
Yes.
That was this collection. So this big giant bronze head was like the least impressive of everything. And when you look at it now, you're like, oh my gosh, that's crazy. So, but Elsa Schiaparelli, she created her house in 1927 and she built a style on this avant-garde and surrealism. So there was a surreal realism. I can't even speak. Designers like Salvador Dali, but she really was the surrealist artist. But as a designer, another thing I really love about her is she was a massive rival to that other woman of that period of time. Who shall not be named. But Roseberry said he never wanted to copy what he did, but he did want to bring the shock value into the haute couture house. And he pretty much, pushes the limit, almost 100 years after it was created. But this one, the show was in the Petit Palais. And I remember, and this is exactly what couture is supposed to be. There were the images of Kylie Jenner and Doja Cat that were all over the internet before the show even started. And that's exactly what this is all about. So everybody was talking about that. And usually, like, Schiaparelli has also in the last few years done things where it looks like it's a purse with a nose on it, or a purse with ears on it. And there's another piece in the collection that is exactly one of those. But he does all of these things that are really different, but it's all free publicity. And when they do that, because then everybody starts sharing it and it goes all over. But he was inspired by Dante's Inferno for this collection and the first ring, so that's why he brought those huge animal heads, because the first ring of Dante's Inferno, they meet a lion, which represents pride and violence, a leopard for lust and malice, and a she-wolf for basically for greed. And that's why he did those three animals' heads on these dresses, like Kylie Jenner was wearing. The heads were sculpted from foam. They literally looked real. So when it first all of a sudden was going all over social media, everybody was freaking out, thinking it was a real taxidermied head of a lion.
Oh gosh, ew.
Yeah, and it was not. It was not. It was like beautifully made. I mean, it looked like, you're the most expensive stuffed animal you would ever have. It was like even made with like silk fur. Just crazy. But these are again are things that you're not wearing. The large headpiece that we see is inspired by Gaston Lachey bronze statue that is just right outside the window of the Louvre in the Jardin des Tuileries. It's a statue called the Standing Woman, created in 1932, was placed in the garden in 2008. It's kind of nestled under the trees near the Grand Basin closest to the Place de la Concorde. And it's literally the exact same face. And so that is where he created this from. And then, so it's pretty amazing because you also think, was he just walking through the Tuileries one day and thought, hey, I'm going to do that? But there's like a slit kind of in the throat. And then underneath the chin, there's like a little circle. And I was trying to find information of like how you wore that. Like, how did she see where she was going? Because I can't, with the way that it would sit on your head, those lines don't seem, the little openings don't seem to line up.
What's the deal? How do we do this?
I don't know how, like, you did it just careen off the end of the runway. But this is paired with the last form of the religious reliquaries, which were usually the most stylized and then the most precious of them because they were covered with gems and jewels and made of gold or silver. Just right in front of it's the bust of Saint Fernand. It's dates back to the beginning of the 16th century, at least the head is. The beautifully decorated silver he's in the tunic and a crown that's topped with 8 florets and then huge cabochon stones. Saint Fernand, we've talked about him before because he's in Notre Dame. He's the King of Castile and Leon. He was born in 1199. Ferdinand's reign was marked with his military victories and deep devotion to his Christian faith, but he might be more known for as being the nephew of Blanche de Castille, who was the mother of Saint Louis. So he was a cousin of Saint Louis, Louis the Ninth. He has his own temple or chapel in the back of Notre Dame. It's dedicated to him that has some of the best paintings in it. So he got to be there basically because of his being related to Saint Louis. But he was canonized as a saint in 1671 by Pope Clement X. And then his feast day is on May 30th. So, just in case you need to celebrate, May 30th. But there is the reliquary right in front of him that would have once held a piece of him. I tried to find any of these all the reliquaries we've talked about, like what was once in them, and most of them it doesn't even say, and sometimes it was taken out, or maybe it didn't even ever have anything in it. But I wasn't able to find really deep information because I love the deeper it goes.
Oh yeah, you are like the internet sleuth of history.
I am the insane rabbit hole runner.
We love you for
But it's really amazing. There's also in the case, which we'll talk about later, because there is a boot by my favorite shoe designer, Christian Louboutin. But we'll talk about all those accessories at once because he's got quite a few things in the Louvre. And then I get to actually, this might be the first time I get to talk about people that are alive.
I know, this is very exciting.
Very exciting to talk about living people.
Well, guys, make sure you tune in next week and head over to ClaudineHemingway.com to learn more. Thanks for listening today, guys. If you're interested in learning more about Claudine, her tours, history, and the beautiful photographs that she posts all over Instagram, tune into her website, ClaudineHemingway.com.